You know, team communication doesn't start with the team. It's all about the leader. So today, I'm going to give you examples of how not to talk to your team and what it looks like to model open communication as a leader so your business is as healthy as possible. I want to tell you a story that I encountered when I was working as a consultant in oil and gas. I had a CEO, he'd made a mistake and he was struggling to galvanize his team and he wanted more interaction from them. In this moment where he had made the mistake, we were talking and I said, you know, you've got an opportunity here to really galvanize your team. Mistakes are that pivot point that allow you to then approach your team and change the trajectory of how they interact with you when you can own them. And so we crafted up a conversation that would allow him to then apologize to his team, admit his mistake, and open it up for discussion on how they would best move forward. And this was going to be a powerful thing because he, as the leader, was saying, hey, I messed up. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't listen properly to you guys. What should we do now? And then really rely on the talents around him. What happened, though, in the moment of truth, is he got scared and he said, hey, James told me you guys are upset at me for doing some stuff. I just wanted to hear what you have to say about it. So he threw me under the bus. He made me look like I had told on them. They were worried that maybe if they spoke up now, they would be targeted. Nobody said a thing. And the team shut down. And it was a very unsuccessful moment. It, in fact, became worse because everybody started to think that I was somebody that was tattling on them. The CEO was possibly coming after them. There was no safety. It was horrible. Simon Sinek writes a book called The Leaders Eat Last, and he talks about this very concept within team structures, how leaders are actually not meant to be the ones that receive the accolades, but they're the ones that are meant to provide the safety for the people around them. And he specifically deals with Navy SEALs and other high-performing teams and shows and demonstrates how the companies that have leaders that will protect and provide safety for their teams thrive well beyond those where the leaders are just beating people into submission to get what they can out of them. So the first point that you need to understand in order to be a powerful leader that has open communication with their team is you must provide safety for your team. What does that mean, to provide safety? Safety is when they are making mistakes, when they are trying to figure things out, when they're bumping into each other, you've got them covered. If finances get tight, if things are difficult, you're not going to axe them immediately because they're a commodity that you need to get rid of right now. In fact, my dad and my grandpa, they grew up in an era where you would go work for a company and they would hold on to you for life. And you would have a retirement, you would be taken care of, and the only way you would lose your job, if you were a good worker, was if the company became insolvent. They would hold you for as long as they could. The leaders would take cuts to themselves in order to protect the people that worked for them. This is not the case nowadays. Nowadays, the top executive team, they're going to get their bonuses and they're going to do everything they can to get their bonuses. And if that means firing you so that they can keep their bottom line in the black and looking good, you will be fired no matter how good an employee you are. It's a terrible methodology, and yet we wonder, why don't people want to come work for this company? There is no safety there. You don't have the safety to express or try or strive knowing that you've been covered. It's crucial for a leader to provide safety. The second thing is leaders must own their own limitations. When a leader owns their own limitations, when they recognize that they are not perfect, they are forced to rely upon the team members around them to cover their deficits. They're open with it. And that then opens the door for the team members to admit their own limitations themselves and say, hey, I need help here because I don't know this as well as you. It becomes a symbiotic relationship where everyone is feeling like they're contributing, they can trust each other, and it in fact is one of the key components of trust in building a trustworthy team. Brene Brown talks about this in her book, Braving. And braving is an acronym that she uses to describe the anatomy of trust. And one of the key elements of trust is not only the ability to care for and help others, but the ability to receive help from the people that are around you. If you are a leader that is unwilling to be supported and helped by your team in the areas that you need help, you will never have a team that is more than just pencil pushers hitting the most minimum performance levels. The third thing is offering support for people who make mistakes. Everyone messes up. Everyone's going to make mistakes. And if you want to be creative and innovative and adaptable in a very changing economic environment, you've got to allow mistakes to be made. You've got to be open to risk. And those people that are willing to take it, they will only be willing to take it if they know that they can make the mistake and not have punitive damages taken out on them in the form of firing or work progress reports or whatever, right? Shaming publicly for screwing up. This happens all the time. Somebody makes a mistake, you reprimand them because they shouldn't have done this and that, but their intent behind the mistake was something that was good. 3M has a company that has produced so many inventions. Did you know that the sticky note that we have was actually invented by somebody? It was a mistake. They had been trying to make a glue that would be extremely powerful and adhere to anything and not release. And yet this glue that they made was very weak and pathetic. And from that glue, rather than punishing the person, the team got together and looked at it and thought, what could we use it for? And sticky notes were made. Isn't that crazy, right? From a mistake became a huge thing that we love to use, right? That is the nature of a company that allows mistakes to be supported. So when you allow for safety, when people make mistakes, they are allowed to be more honest. And this creates a really, really powerful environment. When you can be honest about where you're in, not only about the mistakes you're having, you can then say, honestly, I don't understand what you're asking me to do. Or, you've given me an assignment and I'm working on it, but I actually don't clearly understand where I'm going or how to accomplish this piece. It's beyond me. I need help. When that starts to happen, you get to the core issues of what you're facing, and you have a team that can really, really succeed versus just trying to get across the finish line and not be noticed so that they can say, I'm done, I did my part, and then blame ensues when it doesn't successfully when the whatever it is you're working on doesn't successfully happen because nobody wants to own the mistake. This is no way to run a company, and yet it is most frequently what we see out there. The Navy SEALs, they actually work together as a team in a very, very unique way. But there's a cool story that Simon Sinek tells in his book. There was a guy being reprimanded for falling asleep while on guard during a time of peace in a place. He was on guard on some Navy base in America. There was no threat of attack. He was just doing his duty that night, and he fell asleep while on guard. And he was being court-martialed, and he was going to get kicked out. And somebody said, well, why would you kick him out for this? It's not like he was in any danger. Nobody was really in trouble. And the issue was not that he fell asleep. The issue was that he was not willing to own his mistake. There was another man that had also fallen asleep, but he had owned that he had fallen asleep. He admitted his fault, and they were willing to help him. When you create the safety and you find somebody unwilling to admit their mistake in that environment, that is a person that you know you don't want to work with. And that honesty and that level of being able to be open and say, hey, I did fall asleep, I understand why, allows you to get better. But when you deny it, that's somebody that can't be a part of your team. I recently had an experience at a company where I had a guy that kept making mistakes, and we had it on video. We saw what had happened, but he was denying the fact that he had damaged equipment and broken things, and it wasn't something that would have gotten him fired. But the fact that he would not admit it and talk about it and come forward with it kept us from being able to keep him as an employee. Myself, and I was a kid, I was delivering water for a water company in Vancouver, driving a big truck. and I was screwing up. I crashed into something. I had to call and admit it. I remember I slid and skidded down an icy road and tore up some grass, and they were gonna fire me. And I said, well, why don't you just make me go back and clean it up? I didn't mean to do this. I'm sorry. It was a mistake that I made. And in the process of admitting what I had done wrong and owning what I had done wrong, I was allowed to stay employed. This is the type of environment you want to provide. That safety allows for innovation, but you have to provide it first as a leader. If you do, your team will be unleashed. Stick around, there's another video coming up called How to Talk to Your Boss About Burnout. I'm James Burnham. Thanks for joining me.